I'm Basil, and Basil Schur. I live here in Denmark, and through Green Schools and part of the Gondwana Link program, I'm very excited to see how art and ecology and prehistory and deep time are coming together in your work here. So my response, because of course you came and did art residencies here 2 years ago or thereabouts, is to see that it's evolved and to see your Leeuwin current project move to this stage is really interesting. The thing that strikes me about what I'm looking at now is this attempt at fossil making opens up all sorts of questions that are quite intriguing. For example, what how are fossils made? What causes some species to be fossilized and not others? What conditions are needed? But more than that, to me, a fossil signifies often a species that is no longer with us, which is a scary thought given that we are in a state of mass biodiversity crisis. We're losing species all the time. So what an exhibition or artworks like this do to me is sort of indicate that species of plants that are thriving and living today, and that what you're using in the artwork could well become just a memory in the future, and that this artwork becomes the only thing that remains of that plant. And it's a scary thought, and it empowers us to do what we can to make sure that we do whatever we can to prevent mass extinctions and the loss of even a single plant species.
Absolutely, and it also kind of creates the wonder on the inverse of that. When you see a fossil, I used to love the greening of Gondwana. In 2000, I thought I'm going to do a triptych on this incredible evolutionary tree that was in the greening of Gondwana, and I wanted to find a way of incorporating fossils into my art, and ended up in computer world for that process. And actually, this time making something close to the fossils has taken me out of computer world and back into using traditional tools. But when you see a fossil, you kind of imagine that world, but here we're surrounded by this world. It's an incredible natural living expression of evolution through deep time. And then we see the fossils and we see those other worlds must have been so amazing. They must have been so incredible when you see the fossils, and you think just that stain represents this whole living mass. And these plants, I don't know which ones are endangered or critically endangered, but I think when I was here last time, I went up with Sarah Barrett to the Stirling Ranges and I saw Basil, Montana, and at that point there was like 37, something like that left. And that would be one that I would love to do like this, because it's so close to extinction now, isn't it?
And it's been affected by a fire that swept through that area. So
unbelievable. That was some controlled burn that got out of control and ended up decimating the population. There was 30 or so individuals left.
Yeah. So, but in Western Australia, we have a crisis where dieback could potentially affect, up to half or so of our species of flora. So nothing, it highlights that in evolutionary time, we are in a state, a period of great crisis.
Massive crisis. So have a look over at the table.
Yeah.
Please. So they've all been like, it's just been so wonderful. Like I collected as much as I could on the trip, but I wrote to a number of people that had me on the different residencies, and so many people posted plants for this project, and also Grady Brand from Kings Park collected a whole range of them, and Nathan McCoy went and got them and pressed them, and I'm so grateful to everybody that's been involved, and it's just incredible to see this fossilization process of our time, and imagine like 100 million years from now, something else gets smart and develops paleontology and starts cracking open the rocks and looks at our time. They'll see some very bizarre things, but they might see something similar to this as well. And we know how incredible these plants are in real life, and to see them like this is find something. So what I'm going to do next, when I get back to Canberra, is I will start to arrange these with parts of the drawing, those drawings that represent that section of the Leeuwin Current project, as I've followed it from Wingener Gorge up to Esperance now, and to start to incorporate them into it. I think one side I might draw into, and then the other side I'll just leave it as is.
Yeah. Well, over this period of a week or more that you've been here, you've worked with local artist Jenny Wilson, and I think you've had to basically work through a whole range of experiments to get the effect that you want. Now that in itself opens up all sorts of possibilities for you in the future of taking this sort of idea, which creates wonderful organic results. You know, it's just aesthetically very interesting and rewarding and fascinating to look at this artwork. So I look forward to seeing how it manifests in your next projects, building on this technique and opening up the world of artistic fossil making.
Well, I'm thinking about dividing these up into the bioregions. If we walk over here, I think that would be an interesting way to exhibit this. Like once it's all done, as I was saying, we divide them up maybe like large frames with specific, each one divided up into the bioregion, and then taking the fossils and arranging them into those particular regions. So people would also, there's another, embedded in that another awareness that there is such a thing as a bioregion, and they are separated into these different areas of evolution heritage, and obviously soil types and things. So I think that will be part of the process as well.
Yeah, well, I'm sure it's going to raise questions. People seeing this sort of work are going to ask all sorts of questions, both about the plants, but also the artwork and the scientific knowledge that underlies our increasing knowledge of deep time and evolution.
You remember when I was doing those films with you, and I've done with Steve Hopper, Keith Bradbury, Nathan McCoy, so many people, translanders along this way. All those films now could be accessed through this artwork. When I put it on the site, again, you click on the links of the details, and then the films that you guys will come up talking about conservation and science behind all of this.
Yeah, so what I'm excited by is that you're going to be reaching a lot more than just environmentalists. You're tapping into the world of people interested in native plants, the gardeners, the horticulturalists, but also the arts, the whole world of arts, and that opens up new ways of how we get the message about this, both about the science and the deep time and the knowledge, but also conservation.
You see some of these things brought into schools as well. You see it more actively engaged in the school programs. And see kids not just learning from this, but actually going out into the environment and replicating some of these things as well. I think that's pretty special when you see that kind of thing happening. So grateful for so many people. Because so many people.
Yeah, well, what you do is that you think outside the box, come up with an idea, and get people to see their own landscape, their own project, their own worlds in a different way. So that's the value of this type of art, is that it can trigger different approaches to how we do things and new ways of seeing the world, especially that four-dimensional approach to seeing the world.
Yeah, which is without an understanding of deep ecology and a deeper understanding of the interconnections between life and the rock and of course ourselves, and there's so much to learn from Indigenous perspectives in that regard as well. To look at ways, how do we bring those threads together and say, well, they're not separate things. This is one unifying body of knowledge that we're growing and developing. We have to not just nurture that, we have to share it. We have to keep what I would call the gene streams flowing. To lose this thread of DNA that's been flowing through space-time, and the external representation is what we call a species. To each time we lose one of those threads through our own mismanagement of all of this, is a terrible thing. So that we've got to do everything we can to keep the gene streams flowing. And that's what motivates me to do this